Hello and most welcome to 1937. Maybe that was the year of the Austrian Anschluss. I don't know.
No, 38.
Absolutely.
Czechoslovakia.
Czechoslovakia. Okay. I will continue the read of Essays, Critical and Clinical by Gilles Deleuze. Gilles Deleuze. Indeed.
It is the book of zombies.
And to speak about complementarity, we mentioned last time that the opposites of Christ and John who wrote the Gospel. The John who wrote the Gospel is not the same John who wrote the Apocalypse. And yet they are more united than if they were the same. Here we get an important insight into complementarity. Complementarity is the adding of the opposite to make something more united. That is the only purpose of complementarity. And that also helps to explain why do we not have unity or singularity in the ordinary thinking system. The reason no singularity, unity, permanence can be possible if the opposite is not included. According to quantum mechanics, it shows true unity, true singularity and oneness. And this is what is referred to here, word by word. Well cited, good old Gilles Deleuze. I do like it. And we continue where we left off. It's the last sentence on page 50. Between Christ, St. Paul, and John of Patmos, the chain closes in on itself. Christ, the aristocrat, the artist of the individual soul, who wants to give this soul, John of Patmos, the worker, the miner, who lays claim to the collective soul and wants to take everything. And St. Paul, who closes the link, a kind of aristocrat going to the people, a kind of Lenin who will organize the collective soul, who will make it an oligarchy of martyrs, who give Christ the aims and the apocalypse the means. Was not all this essential to the formation of the system of judgment? Individual suicide and mass suicide with self-glorification on all sides. On all sides.
Spikes.
Death, death, This is the only judgment. A bit grim, I'd say. Grim.
Nu är det många som ringer. Tack för att du väntar. Vet du om att du
Save the individual soul, then, as well as the collective soul. But how? How? But how? Nietzsche ended the Antichrist with his famous law against Christianity. Lawrence and his commentators' commentary on the apocalypse with a kind of manifesto, what he elsewhere calls a litany of exhortations.
Exhortations.
Exhortations! Stop loving. Opposed to the judgment of love, a decision that love can never vanquish. Vanquish.
Vanquish.
Vanquish. Arrive at the point where you can no longer give any more than you take. Where you know you will no longer give anything. The point of Aaron, or the man who died. For the problem has passed elsewhere. To construct banks between which a flow can run. Break apart or come together. Do not love anymore. Do not give of yourself. Do not take. In this way, you will save the individual part of yourself. For love is not the individual part. It is not the individual soul. It is rather what makes the individual soul an ego. Moi. Moi.
Moi. L'état, c'est moi.
Now an ego is something to be given or taken, which wants to love or to be loved. It is an allegory, an image, a subject. It is not a true relation. A true relation. The ego is not a relation, but a reflection. It is the small glimmer that makes a subject, the glimmer of a triumph in an I, the dirty little secrets, as Lawrence sometimes said. Lawrence, dirty little secret. A worshipper of the sun, Lawrence nonetheless said that the sun's glimmer on the grass is not enough to make a relation. He derived an entire conception of painting and music from this. What is individual is the relation. It is the soul and not the ego. The ego has a tendency to identify itself with the world, but it is already dead, whereas the soul extends the thread of its living sympathies and antipathies. Stop thinking of yourself as an ego. In order to live as a flow, a set of flows in relation with other flows outside of oneself and within oneself. Even scarcity is a flow, even drying up, even death can become one. 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 Sexual and symbolic. In effect, they amount to the same thing and have never meant anything else. The life of forces or flows. Flows. There is a tendency in the ego to annihilate itself, which finds a certain propensity in Christ and its full realization in Buddhism, hence Lawrence's distrust of the East. The soul as the life of flows is the will to live, struggle and combat, combat and to combat. It is not only the disjunction, but also the conjunction of flows that is struggle and combat, like restless engaging each other's. Each other's. Each other's. Every accord is dissonant. Every accord is dissonant. War is just the opposite. The opposite.
Opposite.
War is the general annihilation that requires the participation of the ego. But combat rejects war. It is the conquest of the soul. The soul refuses those who want war because they confuse it with struggle, but also those who renounce struggle because they confuse it with war. Militant Christianity
Just nu är det många
and
som ringer.
pacifist Christ
För att du väntar. Vet du om att du kan utföra många av dina ärenden digitalt samt få svar på många av dina frågor genom att chatta med oss via vår virtuella assistent i appen eller
inalienable part of the soul appears when one has ceased to be an ego, and it is this eminently flowing, vibrating, struggling part that has to be conquered. Conquered.
Conquer.
Conquered. Conquered. The collective problem then is to institute, find or recover a maximum of connections. Connections. For connections and disjunctions are nothing other than the physics of relations, the cosmos. Even disjunction is physical, like two banks that permits the passage of flows or their alternation.
Alternation.
Alternation indeed. Alternation. 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 And their alternation, they alternate. But we live at the very most in a logic of relations. We turn disjunctions into an either or. We turn connection into a relation of cause and effect, or a principle of consequence.
Din klassiker är ett.
We abstract a reflection from the physical world of flows, a bloodless double made up of subjects, objects, predicates, and logical relations. Relations. In this way, we extract a system of judgment. It is not a question of opposing society and nature, the artificial and the natural. Artifices matter little. But whenever a physical relation is translated into logical relations, a symbol into images flows into segments exchanged, cut up into subjects and objects. I need to put a pause here. Sorry, a convex. Oh, sorry. Mistaken understanding.
Did you pause it?
No, I've started again. Sorry.
I don't think you
Each for the other, we have to say that the world is dead, and that the collective soul is in turn enclosed in an ego, whether that of the people or a despot. Despot! Despot!
Despot. We need despots.
Despots. These are the false connections that Lawrence opposed. Opposed to thesis or physis. According to Lawrence's critique, money, like love, must be reproached not for being a flow, but for being a false connection that means subject and objects. when gold is turned into loose change. Loose change.
Vaya. Out.
There's no return to nature, but only a political problem of the collective soul. The connections of which a society is capable, the flows it supports, invents, leaves alone, or does away with.
Babies. Away.
Way. Pure and simple sexuality. Yes, if what one means by that is the individual and social physics of relations as opposed to a sexual logic. Like other people of genius, Lawrence died while carefully refolding his bandages, carefully arranging them, and by turning around this idea in this idea. And that ends 1937. And the reading of the text by Gilles Deleuze. Let's go for some quotes here and take a look at the whole page, the whole article. We mentioned earlier that there is a very keen sense of vortex chirality and the idea that everything spirals and then becoming the same, a unity. Only by going into this unity, which can only be done by accepting the contradiction, can we reach this wholeness. I remember that Stephen M. Rosen mentioned, when you open a hole, like in a Klein-Bottlian logic, that is the chance that you can get wholeness. So there is a nice affinity between whole and wholeness. And this we find earlier on in the text in 1931. And if we read closer on page 51, before that we mentioned the complementarity of the two different Johns that usually are criticized by people who see disjuncts and see contradictions as prevalent, whether that in reality should always look for complementarities rather than contradictions. If you take away all contradictions, you end up in fragmentization. And criticism never leads to anything. It's limited by what it criticizes. Further down on page 51, I need to put a pause here. Okay, excuse me. Okay, I'm back. I'm apologizing for the interruption. We were just about to read the importance of complementarity we took up, and we go to page 51.
51.
And about 20 lines down, or from the bottom, we can take 10 lines from the bottom. The ego has a tendency to identify itself with the world. But it is always already dead, whereas the soul extends the thread of its living sympathies and antipathies. Stop thinking of yourself as an ego in order to live as a flow, a set of flows in relation with other flows outside of oneself and within oneself. Hallelujah! This shows to the importance of the confluence of opposites. Only when the opposites are taken in can there be eternity for the soul, and even there can be a soul when contradictions are not obliterated. This is one of the reasons why reading from the left hemisphere or reading in this classical physical mode of extinguishing contradictions always leads to annihilation of the soul. We have become brute material things without the soul. The soul itself is, of course, complementary. Quantum mechanics was the most important message from God, showing that in complementarity there is soul, free will, and a higher being in the form of God. We go forward to page 52. Page 52, smack with quantum mechanical relations and references. And directly it starts, it is not only the disjunction, but also the conjunction of flows that is struggle and combat. Like restless engaging each other. I come here to think about the painting that depicts complementarity. I checked with some people interested in quantum mechanics. The hugging angels of Botticelli's painting is clearly pointing to the confluence of the most major opposition in reality, that in between a particular point of view or a particular space, place, it's a particle, or a general flow, which is the wave. Those two sides of reality, two sides of the same coin are exactly like restless engaging each other, or better, more lovingly, I would say, angel caressing man. This is how permanence is reached. The path to permanence is inclusion of the dichotomy, the other side. Further down, we can see how Gilles Deleuze borrowed freely from quantum mechanics the inalienable part of the soul appears when one has ceased to be an ego. He went down a bit. Yeah, it is this eminently flowing, vibrating, struggling part that has to be conquered. This is also the confluence we mentioned when we had Life Death by Jacques Derrida. How a detoned voice can become toned once more when the opposite is interwoven. It is let to be interpenetrative. We have also shown this vastly important tendency when it comes to interpenetration. Many episodes ago, we took up the Matryoshka dolls, and they are constantly interpenetrating, going into each other and forcing, bringing forward, making struggle, and thereby coming into a new harmonious relation. Further down here, I have a solution here. It's for connections and disjunctions are nothing other than the physics of relations, the cosmos. Even disjunction is physical, like two banks that permit a passage of flows or their alternation. Can you see here? It's a lovely synchronicity, as is, of course, the two sides of a coastline, whatever you might have. The live things, the permanence, is in the liminal zone, the border zone, not in either, not in the permanent coast, if you like, the material coast, neither in the flowing water, but exactly in what is in between. This is what we lost. And then, oddly enough, this is getting crazier and crazier. There is a complete odd thing. We live at the very most in the logic of relations. Quantum relation by Carlo Rovelli is mentioned here. And he's odd because it's way before his time. We live in relations. That logic is what is definite. And almost unnecessary to mention, Lawrence did not like Russell. Russell was keen on either or. He thought criticism and argumentative roles could have a role to play. See, instead of reading a text like this, that you enter a dance. Criticizing or arguing against only stops the flow. It doesn't lead anywhere. It's a bombardment of negativity. Go into the flow, see what it leads, and also understand the spiral, the vortex, the maelstrom is dependent on the oppositions. Take those away, there is no maelstrom, and there is no goodness in life either. And this puts the whole interpretation of the revelation into a more brilliant and lucid light. Kalle Lundblad, please come in here.
Thank you. Yeah, there is a lot of good stuff on this page 52 that I will use in my research papers, like video disjunctions into an either or.
Yeah.
With a connection into a relation of cause, and then I jump here. We abstract a reflection from the physical world of flows.
Yeah.
So this is the key. We turn disjunction into an either or. We abstract a reflection from the physical world of flows. So this is so he praises this. Connections and disjunctions are nothing other than the physics of relations or the cosmos. That's also very good. So because we have this either or, this is also material for your lecture about.
Yeah, definitely. The either or is damaging. In neo-academia or the anti-intellectual academia, it's a lot of effort put into criticism. But as we know, criticism is completely without value. It doesn't bring anything to a text. It leads to a stop. It's like one direction is getting stopped by another one. And except for physics, we are so much into criticism, argumentative, like I am right, you are wrong by Edward de Bono clearly points to this. Criticism is worthless. It has no purpose whatsoever. We live in a flow where both sides are admitted and bring a stronger vortex, a spiral, or even better, a maelstrom made up of opposition.
And let me now go to the previous lectures. There are many takeaways in this paper.
Yeah.
One of the things is on page 43. So this was a few days ago. Page 43. Yes, this one. No, is this 43? Let me see. No, this is 42. So it's let's see. No, this is 43. No, it was easy to navigate in these pages. Yes, here. Like Patmos. John Patmos is an uneducated Welsh miner.
Oh yeah, I remember that. And that got changed into an English minor. That's even more lovely.
And then on the next page, you have this excellent metaphor on page 44. So miners like John of Patmos supposedly know all about strata. They have no need to be well read, but then pagan death rumbles deep within them. They are all open to a pagan stratum. They set it loose, they make it thing only its goal is Christ. So the thing is that so there is Deleuze affirms that the book of Revelation contains many pagan stuff as if that was something bad. As if you can arrive to pureness by eliminating the pagan elements. But on the other hand, he contradicts himself here, which I think is good.
Yeah.
In a coal mine, you need also the unclean stuff, and the coal itself. The goal of the coal miners is something impure. It's so dirty as you can have. But it's gold for them. So gold is instead of thinking that the original text is something pure, it's soiled from the very beginning.
Good, yeah.
But it's but not in a negative sense, because it's mingled with the world, and Christ is part of the world.
Therefore, it's always having its contradiction within it.
And here, I think I mentioned this already. about Zola. He wrote, let me see, it disappeared. The right page. Where did it disappear? He's great. Novel, Germinal, yes, here. No, it disappeared. So in Germinal, he praised the coal miners.
Yeah.
And then that work, Germinal, inspired Van Gogh.
Oh, yeah, okay. Ah, wow, I
Actually.
didn't know that.
So here. So you see here, this is very good. To Zola's masterpiece, and that inspired actually novel, Van Gogh.
Oh.
A novel about a man who greatly impressed Van Gogh. And a sociological criticism is implicit in many of his pictures. And then Potatoes is, of course, relevant. From 1885, and today you can admire his work in Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Wow.
But I propose that we end there.
It's a beautiful painting. Thank you very much for that one. And poor guys, they're drinking coffee with the potatoes, the two most cheapest thing you can eat. And enjoy coffee and potatoes. I hope you all got some more nutritious to eat today. I was actually given a sandwich today, which I usually enjoyed with chicken. So you can go a bit further than potatoes. Thank you very much, Kalle Ludlow, for participating. Thank you for the laughs. And thank you everyone for listening in. Have a beautiful morning, day, or evening, wherever you are. Bye-bye for now.